If you have a smart speaker, you have access to the entire world of NPR and St. Louis Public Radio. All the latest news and all the captivating stories. Activate our voices with yours by telling your smart speaker to play St. Louis Public Radio.
From St. Louis Public Radio. This is Politically Speaking. Former Illinois State Senator Darren Bailey was the Republican nominee for governor in 2022. And after falling short to incumbent Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker, Bailey is now setting his sights on Illinois' 12th congressional district. Bailey joins us on the latest episode of Politically Speaking to talk about his campaign and why he would be a better Republican standard bearer than incumbent Congressman Mike Bost. Let's hit the music.
This is the Politically Speaking podcast, an in-depth examination of Missouri and Illinois politics.
The instant we got to Illinois, we joined the Green Party. This was 2000.
So I've tried to push for those that I think are honest and really care about the future of the city.
You know, this wasn't a path that I thought I would choose in 2012 when I was able to win the closest Republican victory in the nation.
If it's something that will help Southern Illinois, I'll work with him on it. If there's something he's doing wrong, then you got to fight him on it.
I believe very strongly in the Second Amendment. I believe less government is better, and I believe local control is better.
I choose to fight for working families and for union members.
And welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm your host, St. Louis Public Radio political correspondent Jason Rosenbaum. Joining me in studio, he is St. Louis Public Radio's Metro East reporter,
Will Bauer.
And joining us via the magical device known as Zoom, he is one of the Republicans running to represent Illinois' 12th congressional district,
Darren Bailey.
Before we start, Will and I were having this conversation. You are a former state legislator, but you are not a current legislator. Do you want to be called senator or representative, or can we just call you Darren throughout this conversation?
You calling me Darren would just be great. Yes, I served as a state rep 2019 and 2020 for 2 years, and 2021 and 22 as senator, and then obviously the governor candidate in 22. So, nope, Darren's my name. That'd be awesome.
Why did you decide to get into this race?
Well, my wife Cindy and I, we have 4 children, and now we have 13 grandchildren, and it all started in 2017 when we just had 4 grandchildren, and you know, our taxes were being currently hiked up, and I began to realize how so-called conservative Republicans were compromising their values, and I grew frustrated about that. So I started doing some research, and you know how it is as Americans, if you think you can do a better job, you know, do it yourself. So that's kind of what led me in. I started educating the people in my community, and they responded. They responded enormously to the point they started asking me to, you know, run for state rep. So we did. I've learned a lot. I think the bulk of my movement, my message is educating the masses, letting them know that, hey, this is how our government's being run. I don't know about you. I'm not happy with it, and I'm going to speak up for something different, and people are responding. So essentially that's been our journey to this point. I went back to the farm after the governor's race with my 3 sons, Bailey Family Farm, and I came home one day in March, and I told my wife that there's just something missing here. I'm not I wasn't ready to go back to the farm, but you know, of course I would, but I felt like there was still more work to do. So our family and I, we in our church, we prayed, we fasted, and we believe that we still have work to do in the field of government. So I felt that the journey to Springfield, that I had accomplished my purpose there, that, you know, Republicans are in the super minority, and unfortunately I don't see that turning around anytime soon. So, you know, I think I elevated a movement to get people involved here in Illinois for local and state races. But then I began to look at the federal side. Okay, if we truly believe we're called to government, what does that mean? Started researching my congressman, and I found some voter grading sites. I ran across one in particular, conservativereview.com, and of our 3 Republican legislators, I found Mary Miller. She was up there about ranked 17 out of 283. She had a 97% conservative score, A+. I went down the list and down about 110 or so. I found Darren LaHood. He had a C-, a 72% voting record. And that didn't really make me happy, but I thought, I wouldn't challenge that. That's he's doing what he needs to do. I wished he was more conservative, but when I went to my representative here in Southern Illinois, the Southern Third, and saw a 50% voter grading scale, F-, I was shocked. So I began to research that for the last 9 years that my opponent has been a congressman. I began to look at the votes that earned him this F failing grade.
And which organization what is this organization that was grading him? Just before you continue.
There are several of them. So conservativereview.com, and then there's heritageaction.com. Those are 2 that grade the entire term. And, it has the word conservative in it, but that doesn't necessarily make it a Republican, a conservative like we think it organization. They grade bills based on, our finances, our freedom, family, faith, the things that they believe are making life more burdensome on we the people. So it really is a pretty powerful tool to use to look up any congressperson and see how they've been voting. And I think when people do that and begin to educate themselves like I've done, you begin to realize why life as an American is becoming, more constrained and more burdensome.
A big part of this race is is your comparison, right, between Mike Bost being maybe the establishment Republican, the Washington insider who wears a 3-piece suit, versus you, who's the fresh set of eyes, not in the swamp, as you would say. So I guess my question is, how do you think that, his experience and your fresh set of eyes, or however you would phrase it, will benefit you in this race for the 12th congressional district?
The biggest thing that I witnessed at 4 years in Springfield was that people would show up a new, in a new position, and they immediately go into this mindset of what I need to do to get reelected. And obviously, every decision that you make as an elected official, you're making someone irritated. You're not making everyone happy. So there comes in this idea of compromise. And I get it. We must work together, but as a Republican and as a conservative Republican, I cannot compromise my values. Yet I see someone like Mike Bost who's compromised himself immensely over his last 10 years as a congressman, and even 20 years prior to that as a state representative. So letting people know that, hey, you know what, if a farmer from Southern Illinois can be, by the grace of God, elevated to be the Republican nominee for governor, you can do anything. And not only that, but I have stuck my neck out continually for the people, letting them know that, hey, you have a voice. I'm going to be your voice. This gun registration, you don't have anything to fear about this. And oh, by the way, I'm going to prove to you that you don't have anything to fear. So I get on Facebook and social media, and I show J.B. Pritzker my guns, and I say, hey, these are not registered, nor are they ever going to be registered. What are you going to do about it? Because I know the law is unconstitutional. I know that it can't be upheld, but I know that it's just, striking fear into people. I realized that whenever he started closing down businesses, off the heels of COVID. And being a state representative, my office, my phones were flooded by businesses all over the state, men and women scared to death, concerned because they were told that they must close their doors with no answer as to how they were to pay their next utility bill and mortgage. And as a matter of fact, the restaurants, what they were going to do with a refrigerator full of fresh produce. So I sued J.B. Pritzker and won that lawsuit, began to give people hope, say, hey, we're Americans. Open your doggone businesses back up. There's no law that told you to close. Use common sense here and do what you need to do. So that is, I think, the epitome of of the last 4 years in Springfield and the run for governor, is to just let people know that, hey, you've got someone like you here fighting, wanting to make a change for our family, and it's about my children, it's about my grandchildren, it's about our future, and I think people are responding to that, and no one, I mean, 9 times out of 10, when you hear somebody mention our congressman's name, they don't even pronounce his last name correctly. So that tells me that he hasn't been representing the people well, because when you represent the people, you're among the people. It's not about going to Springfield or D.C. and passing more laws. It's about being boots on the ground to help them through this burdensome of large and obese government that continually just pushes at every angle and nook and cranny of life, and we're tired of it.
And I've heard Mike Bost joke that you two both largely agree on the issues, and it wouldn't make for a very good debate. And so I guess maybe besides the difference in experience and fresh set of eyes, and you being more willing to not compromise your values versus him maybe being more willing to compromise, is there any other way that you two are noticeably different from each other?
We're different almost in every doggone aspect there is. I would love to debate that man. I'm going to tell you that right now. If anybody, he refuses to debate, because I will bring to the table the fact that he says he's pro-life, yet why does he continue to vote for the national budget that gives $500 million to Planned Parenthood? He says he's pro-life, but why does he give why on earth would he allow the RU-486 pill to be given freely across all of our military bases? He says he stands for the people, but he says he protects our veterans. Why on earth would he be the last person, only as of a year ago, to lift the vaccine mandates off of our active military personnel? I just got back from the border. This man says that now all of a sudden, out of the blue, let's not forget that he was a congressman the 4 years of President Trump. Yet you've never really heard him say anything about illegal immigration and the wall. Matter of fact, I've got him on video on amnestymike.com stating that, he doesn't really want to call Trump's wall the wall, because he just doesn't like the sound of that. This man voted multiple times for amnesty for millions of illegal aliens, and I stand against that nonsense. My question is, why? Matter of fact, he is the co-chair to what's called the Main Street Caucus. I love the work that the House Freedom Caucus is doing. They're obviously the conservative minority within the Republicans. But even within the Main Street Caucus's talking points, they tell you that immigration's not really on their radar. They have 5 pillars, and they have refused to change those pillars. They say there's a left ditch and there's a right ditch, and they like to stay right in the middle. And I contend wholeheartedly that without that conservative voice, that Republican platform that I personally adhere to and believe has many of the answers to our problems today, without that voice, you're just a resounding gong, and that is exactly what Mike Bost has been for 30 years now. And so no, there's a lot that separates us. You can say something, but then your fruit and your actions, they indeed prove who you are and what you are. And unfortunately, his talk is not backed up by his walk.
I wanted to maybe bring it in a little more locally, specifically to the region, the Metro East specifically. So I wanted to ask you about Scott Air Force Base and kind of the surrounding military families that are a big part of the district in this neck of the woods. So I guess the question is, have you made an attempt to reach and campaign with veterans specifically in the area? And if so, how have you approached campaigning there?
Oh, I have. And as a matter of fact, many, many veterans have actually reached out to me. I have visited several retired veterans from actually Scott Air Force Base, people that were born and raised outside of Illinois, but found their home in the Metro East after serving in Scott and retiring from there. And I will tell you, there are several Democrats who have reached out to me. I went to one apartment building in O'Fallon just 2 weeks ago, and he wanted me to come and ask some questions. And upon leaving, he doesn't necessarily agree with me on much of anything other than the fact that they're fed up with the promises that were made and are being failed to be kept. And upon leaving that that time with him, I was informed that this would be the first time that he'd ever be voting in a Republican primary in his entire life, because he found hope in my message. I have every time we're out and about, I have veterans bringing me copies of their prescriptions. Korean veterans, Vietnam veterans, who are, they're scared because they've been told that they were going to be taken care of. And this ranges from career military personnel to someone who served a tour in Vietnam, to someone who served, their 4 years, even as of recently. But yet they're finding nothing but heartache and frustration within our VA system. And the VA system is, it's held captive to what D.C. allows it to do. And here you've got a veteran himself who's served for the last now 10 years on the VA committee, last 2 years as its chair, and has, found out with the rest of us in December that the VA committee is actually, some of their money is going to process illegal aliens. That is so sad. We're doing this when we're not even taking care of our own veterans. Something's wrong. So again, the talk is simply not being matched with the walk. It's obvious. So yes, 3 weeks ago, I earned the endorsement of Veterans for America First, otherwise known as Veterans for Trump. When they called me and wanted to do a formal interview, I told them, I said, well, what's this really about? Because, many organizations, as long as an incumbent votes with them 80% of the time, they just automatically endorse them. And they said, sir, we've had it with the chair of the VA committee. This man hasn't been living up to his promises or to his word. And I earned their endorsement because of that.
I want to talk about some of the issues that have been top of mind in Congress recently. And I want to split up the bill regarding immigration, Ukraine, and Israel kind of separately, because I'm going to guess you're not in favor of the immigration part, based off your comments. Is that true?
I love the way you said that. That is correct. I love the way you said that about splitting these up. I'm going to fight like crazy for single issue bills. This nonsense of tying everything together and amending a bill and shoving. I witnessed that in Springfield when the opposing side, when the Republicans, we just had 1 hour to view a bill after it had been amended, and many cases amending meant full gut and replace. And I know there's a little more time than that out in D.C., but I also realize the bills are much, much more complex. So we need single issue bills, first of all, instead of combining all of this stuff together.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you actually about Ukraine funding, because with this multi-tiered bill looking like it's on the verge of collapse, it's looking perhaps more likely that maybe the Congress will just vote up or down on Ukraine funding. What's kind of your view on continued military assistance to Ukraine as it tries to repel this invasion from Russia?
Well, unfortunately, I think we've seen too much proof that there's too much fraud going on. There's zero accountability. And without any accountability, with our border still being open, and we are actually having an invasion here in our own home front, my first priority, number one priority, should have been done years ago. number one priority is closing our border and making sure that we are secure with the millions of people who have come, undocumented aliens who have come into our country. We have got to secure ourselves first, because we have no idea who these people are. We know many times on ages that we have fighting age young men coming across these borders, no documentation. So that is first and foremost the priority. And until we secure that, everything else is off the table.
Okay, so I've heard some arguments, and I want to just be transparent as I always am here. Like, I'm half Ukrainian, so I've probably been paying attention to that conflict more than most people. But I don't think what you just said is invalid at all. But I do want to ask about this argument that we shouldn't fund Ukraine because of corruption. Yet a lot of Republicans are willing to send money to Israel, even though their Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is literally on trial for corruption. So what do you kind of make of that argument that we shouldn't send money to Israel either, because their government and the head of their government has shown that he is not on the up and up either?
Well, as far as, it's kind of, let's throw in this whole drama and debacle with President Trump. There can be talk, there can be charges, but until someone's actually, until they are found guilty by a court, that's when the rubber's going to hit the road there. But biblically, I believe that those that bless Israel will in turn be blessed. I believe that. However, the days of just sending supplies, money, equipment, whatever, without any accountability, I think we found out that those are over. I'm a farmer, and I'm telling you what, we had a pretty tough year in Clay County with our yields, and farming has its ups and downs, and it's interesting because when times are good, you enjoy life a little bit better. You spend money in places that you might not normal, but then when you have tough years, you have to back up and you have to take a second look at everything. And not only does that mean that you just are going to tighten up for that year, but sometimes you realize that, gosh, I might have been a little more frivolent with some of my spending than I should have been, and maybe in years ahead I need to do that a little bit differently. And I think that is exactly how the American people want their tax dollars and their resources spent. Let's face it, if we keep throwing trillions towards across the world, I think it's obvious that our military right now, I think we're undermanned, and some of that is due to Mike Bost's inability to stand up and protect the men and women on our bases and demand that they be vaccinated when they didn't want to be, and many of them left. So now here we are. We find ourselves, I'm going to say, in danger as a nation. Our military is strung thin. We don't have what we need. We've been giving away much of our resources, and let's not to mention the whole debacle that took place with the Biden disaster of leaving all the stuff that we left in Afghanistan. So we've got some serious problems here on our home front, and we have got to acknowledge that. We've got to deal with it. We've got to get healthy at home, and then we can take a new, fresh look at the needs across the world.
So we have one more question that Will has about Donald Trump, and then we'll let you go.
I am curious. Trump is a big factor in this race. When it was the last time that you spoke to the former president, and what did you talk about? And maybe a third part to this question, excuse the long question, are you anticipating him to endorse in this race?
So I spoke to him 1 week before Christmas. Yes, we did talk about the endorsement. He is. We are definitely on his radar. I do have hopes that I will receive his endorsement at this even a late hour before March 19th. He's a smart man, and it's interesting while talking to him, I have to continually remind him that Mike Bost was a congressman the 4 years that he was president, and he doesn't have a lot of fruit to show from that. So not only that, but here we go again, words matching the walk. Mike Bost says that he's always supported Trump. Well, that's not true. Mike Bost is on record supporting John Kasich in 2016, the first never Trumper, ironically. Upon John Kasich losing, Mike Bost is on record boycotting the Republican convention. It's interesting this year that Mike Bost fought tooth and nail to keep me off as a delegate, and it was the Trump team themselves that actually intervened to allow me to be a delegate since I was endorsed a Republican nominee in 2022. But this is the first year that Mike Bost has ever served in any official capacity, say as a delegate for President Trump. In 2020, I was an alternate delegate, and I discovered that as a sitting congressperson, all they have to do is say, I want to be a delegate for whatever campaign, and they are automatically put on as a delegate. I find it ironic that Mike Bost was not nowhere to be seen in 2020. And when President Trump came to Illinois to endorse Mary Miller and myself in June of 2022, Mike Bost was nowhere to be seen. I mean, let's think about that. Why on earth wouldn't he have come? That was a wonderful day that was a great day for Illinois, but no Mike Bost. So I think it's very important to realize again that the proof that I think that's very important to realize that his talk does not match his walk. And to sit here and to have supported initially the first never Trumper, I think that speaks volumes. And I don't believe Mike Bost, he's kind of an opportunist. Wherever the winds blow. I mean, right now, our district is being flooded with mailings. Right now, just 5 weeks away from outside of elections. Here on the state side, I think there was kind of a moratorium of 90 days, and you couldn't send any articles out, that's paid for by the state. Millions of dollars have been spent on advertising that goes out and says paid for by, the U.S. House of Representatives. That is tax dollars. Just as a representative, we represent everybody. But to sit here and receive a mailer like I received yesterday talking about the terrible liberals, and they are paying for part of that. It's not coming out from campaign money. It's coming from the tax dollars. I think that's wrong, and that needs to be stopped. So, our polling has us winning. I think Mr. Bost knows that. I think he's desperate. I think he's grasping for straws, but I truly believe his time is up. He's served, and people, there's no fruit of it. And I look forward to being the Republican nominee on March 19th.
Well, Darren, thank you very much for joining our show. And we will also be talking with Congressman Mike Bost, so you can listen for yourself and make that decision. Politically Speaking is a product of St. Louis Public Radio, which is part of the University of Missouri St. Louis. Before we let you go, Darren, is there a website or any social media that you want to just mention to learn more about your campaign?
Absolutely. BaileyForIllinois.com is our main website. I have my Facebook page. It's Darren Bailey, the certified page. That's where we get put out a lot of our message. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. And I do want to mention, I'm not sure what time this publication is coming out, but Matt Gaetz is coming in on February 16th in Marion, Illinois for an endorsement. We've just released that yesterday. And we also have other sites. We've got amnestymike.com out there that really tells the truth. When he says every time I've mentioned something, Mike has said, no, I didn't say that. I didn't do that. But this website is very detailed, has everything on it that, he's proven when his walk hasn't, or his talk hasn't matched his walk. So
until next time, so long. Politically Speaking is produced by Sarah Kellogg, Rachel Lippman, and me, Jason Rosenbaum. The show is edited by Fred Ehrlich. Read all of our coverage at stlpr.org. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Politically Speaking by searching the term Politically Speaking on Apple Podcasts.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.